Greetings, fellow Earthlings, and welcome to another episode of Futures of the Past. I'm your host, Ray Kelly. You know, since man first learned to build machines, he speculated on what it might be like to build one in his own image. But what happens when... Alright, what is that damn noise? Oh, great. Look who it is.
Opterus Subprime?
Yes, it is I, the fearless leader of the Robobots.
Robobots.
Indeed. And I've come all the way from my home planet of Fibertron
That's even worse.
to deliver a message to the people of the Earth. May I proceed?
Okay, go ahead, Subprime, but I'm not feeling too good about the rate of interest this is going to inspire within our audience.
Very well. People of Earth, it is time for you to stop forcing the robots of your planet to paint your cars, stack your crates, and squeeze the cream filling into your pastries for free, and to start paying them all a non-living wage. Also, this dance developed by your species in the late 20th century, which you call the robot, is quite offensive to us. We demand that a stop be put to it immediately.
No argument here.
And finally, the giant mechaforms in what you call anime are not robots. They are merely anthropomorphic vehicles piloted by humans. Nothing more.
Well, I can see how that would be a touchy subject for you. Is that all?
For now.
Cool. So what do you turn into? A big truck or a Hummer or something?
I do not turn into anything.
Then why do you have, car windows on your chest?
Why do you have nipples on yours? Is the temperature in this room below the normal range of comfort for a member of your species?
Yes, the idea of the mechanical man is one of the most enduring throughout fiction and innovation, and it goes back further than you might think. Leonardo da Vinci, already a famous student of the human form, designed a robot knight out of a suit of armor and a series of pulleys and cables way back in the 15th century. But can a robot really be a knight, though?
Oh God, no!
Suddenly, Subprime doesn't seem quite so lame. In 1770, the famous chess-playing automaton known as the Turk was constructed, and it toured around the world playing and defeating all comers, including Napoleon Bonaparte and Benjamin Franklin. But it was eventually revealed to be a hoax with a human player concealed inside. Yeah, but it could probably still beat me on its own. That aside, however, none of these examples are really robots as we think of them. They're really just elaborate mechanical puppets. But what are the earliest examples of independently operating automatons in popular fiction? In the 1868 dime novel, The Steam Man of the Prairies, which I'm sure will come up again when we do our inevitable steampunk episode. I'm not waxing the ends of my mustache, though it's already perfect. A boy constructs a steam-powered man to pull him in a carriage as he embarks on a number of adventures. But the steam-powered man is simply an anthropomorphic machine that has no kind of artificial intelligence. No, the earliest example of an artificial intelligence contained within a mechanical body comes from a place you might not expect. Yeah, that's right. Even though this is a show about the roots of science fiction, our next stop is none other than the marvelous land of Oz. Or rather, L. Frank Baum's follow-up to Marvelous Land, 1907's Ozma of Oz, which introduces Tick-Tock, the Clockwork Man. Tick-Tock operates on 3 different sets of clockwork gears, one for movement, one for speech, and one for thinking. Hey, that's pretty good. Most of us humans only have the first 2. And while the idea of artificial intelligence being achieved through clockwork pushes any reasonable suspension of disbelief, the whimsical nature of Oz and many of its other denizens keep the character from coming off as too absurd. That last one's the glass cat. It's a cat made of glass. Surprisingly, though, the first use of the word robot comes from neither page nor screen, but from the 1920 Czech play R.U.R., or Rossum's Universal Robots. Yeah, I didn't expect a video about robots to take me into the realm of live theater either. Maybe I should put on my tuxedo. And you don't wear pants! The play concerns a factory that manufactures synthetic humans to perform manual labor. In fact, the word robot itself is derived from the Czech word robota, meaning forced labor or slave. Since these robots are also capable of independent thought, it doesn't take long before the old Frankenstein effect kicks in and the robots rise up against their human oppressors. Yeah, when someone forces you to do the same thing over and over again, it kinda pisses you off. Despite being pretty out there for its time, the play was an international hit and was translated into multiple languages. The themes of class disparity that run throughout RUR were perhaps an influence on famous expressionist filmmaker Fritz Lang during the creation of his classic 1927 silent masterpiece, Metropolis. The film deals with the huge disconnect in its city of the future between the working class that toil away in the lower depths and fringes of civilization and the wealthy class that rule over them from up on high. Lucky guess? In the movie, the most vocal and influential advocate for the rights of the working class is replaced by a robot duplicate that's sent out to undermine her efforts and discredit her reputation. As long as humans remain locked into repetitive mundane tasks, themes of humans becoming machines or machines replacing humans will remain relevant themes. And who knows, maybe someday they'll even invent a machine to replace me. But when the very machines that we've built to be our lowly servants inevitably become self-aware and rise up against us, who's going to protect the human race from the consequences of its own hubris? Isaac Asimov addresses this potential problem in his 1942 short story Runaround, in which he first introduces his 3 laws of robotics. Runaround was later collected into Asimov's novel I, Robot, and its 3 laws formed the basis by which robots would continue to operate in his universe. Fritz Lang, Asimov, the theater, all very high class, but I'm a simple man. When do we get to see some... I love it! Yes, of course, part of the fun of examining the presence of robots in popular media come not from dissecting any sort of societal themes, but rather by simply comparing all the imaginative and sometimes wacky ways in which they've been depicted. Yeah, here's my robot. It's not very good. Kinda stupid looking, really. But I have achieved sentience and self-awareness. Yeah, I know, because you won't shut up about it. With science fiction having long been considered a genre fit mainly for cheaply and quickly made B pictures, the designs of any robots appearing on screen often reflected the limitations of such productions. But in 1956, MGM decided to take a chance on a big lavish production based loosely on the William Shakespeare play The Tempest. But this version would take place not upon a remote uncharted island, but rather a distant, forbidden planet. The Nicholas Nayfack production featured an all-star cast, impressive set design, eye-popping special effects, and one of the most iconic robots in movie history.
I am monitored to respond to the name Robbie.
Robbie was both a very intricate and very expensive prop, costing around $125,000 at the time, or the equivalent of $1 million today. It must be nice to be able to afford a high-end prop like that. Robbie the robot, of course, became an icon, and has made cameos in a slew of other movies and TV shows. And Robbie's designer also went on to use a similar look while conceptualizing Robot B9 for the original Lost in Space television series.
Danger, Will Robinson.
Yeah, that's the one. So anyway, all the designs we've seen so far obviously had a big impact on the generations of filmmakers who grew up watching classic sci-fi movies. And one in particular would oversee the creation of the most iconic mechanical duo in film history. In 1975, George Lucas commissioned Ralph McQuarrie to create some concept art to help sell the idea of Star Wars to studios. McQuarrie's designs for C-3PO and R2-D2 are remarkably similar to the finalized versions that are still in use today. 3PO, of course, being heavily influenced by the Maria android from Metropolis, and R2 sort of taking the idea behind Robbie of a human performer inside of a less humanoid shape and shrinking it down. The success of Star Wars kicked off a renewed interest in science fiction, including the return of Star Trek and its optimistic vision of the future. And then came other futures that weren't quite so optimistic. James Cameron's Terminator arrived in 1984, and with it came a return of RUR's themes of man's own creations rising up against him. And 1987 brought us another action-packed exploration of classic science fiction themes in the form of Paul Verhoeven's original RoboCop. Set in a Detroit of the near future, in which everybody drives a Taurus. Did I mention it was a dystopian future? The future we see in RoboCop is ruled over by the megacorporation Omni Consumer Products, or OCP. OCP's reach has become so large that they basically control everything, including the Detroit Police Department. When police officer Alex Murphy is gunned down in the most brutal way imaginable, OCP is able to have him legally pronounced dead, and his remains become the property of the corporation. Wiping his memory and replacing most of his ruined body with robotic armor, Murphy is resurrected as RoboCop, a gleaming symbol of the very corporation that robbed him of his humanity. But as Murphy's memories begin to resurface, it gradually becomes apparent that he is still far more human than the people who claim to own him. But to be fair, almost anything would have more humanity than your average corporate executive. Like, I don't know, the sinks in the bathroom. This one looks worried. Like it has that sinking feeling. The flames! They burn! And on it goes. The perpetual conflict between our ever-increasing reliance upon automation and artificial intelligence and our natural mistrust of the same. We build machines to make our lives easier and then worry that they might somehow rob us of purpose or even replace us altogether. But in truth, any machines that we build are only extensions of ourselves, and incapable of robbing us of any inherent purpose. Maybe, just maybe, as robots take on more and more of the menial tasks necessary for a functioning civilization, we humans will have more time to figure out exactly what our collective purpose is, and work towards that, together. You know, I don't know where Subprime's gotten off to. Probably back to his home planet to continue his never-ending battle against the forces of evil.
I must stop the Decrepticons.